Oh no, you all made me do it now. Prepare for the unapologetic fangirling over an absolutely fantastic tank. 7 reasons to play the warrior has arrived, and this is actually one of the easiest videos that I've ever done. So the elevator pitch is that the warrior is an insanely powerful tank that focuses more on outright healing off of damage taken than mitigation, earning it the funny but kind of fairly honest nickname of being the green tank, since it is kind of basically a healer if we're just super upfront. But for real, that's not a joke. Many people, including myself, consider the warrior extremely self-sufficient. Even without an attentive healer, you are outright stupidly hard to kill, and that is coming from me, and I fuck up a lot, which obviously at the end of the day, controlling your own life as a tank feels hella good. Past that, the warrior features an extremely approachable rotation with very clear inputs and clear outputs, but don't let that be deceptive. It still feels extremely great, extremely powerful to pilot the warrior in any content because guaranteed direct critical hit spam numbers are gigantic and absolutely pumps the dopamine and does not stop. Like literally every minute you're just like going ham and it feels fucking great. Oh yeah, and to top all of this off, the warrior also has what many people largely consider to be the #1 best tank invuln in the entire game. Do I recommend the warrior? Very easily. Like, it is an outrageously strong tank. In fact, I would argue that it is my #1 recommendation for the no BS, no frills, get shit done tank. Whether you're a veteran, whether you're a new player with Tankxiety, 100% recommend warrior. There's no doubt in my mind, warrior. If this video inspires you to take up the path of the warrior, whether you be a warrior of light or a warrior of darkness, I would super appreciate if you smashed 5 fell cleaves and a primal rend in your buff window into that like button, and cat daddy that subscribe button. Reason number 1 is like what I was getting at earlier. Warrior is the #1 tank, in my opinion, has the most control over its life and sacrifices absolutely nothing to do so. When I play my warrior, I feel like I have control, and that simply feels great, especially as a tank. You literally on the warrior have the #1 healing in all of the game for tanks, and that's literally when we're pulling up the actual hard stats. And as a healer, subjectively, I can tell you that the warrior is a tank that I can literally largely ignore. Like me on Sage or Scholar, like my Cardia or my Fairy is largely enough to sustain a warrior through most damage that they just simply heal off themselves. And that is no joke. It is absolutely insane. This is going to come through Bloodwetting, which is a powerhouse ability every 25 seconds for 400 potency barrier on click immediately up front, and then usually you can land in 4 hits for 1600 potency of healing. So that's about 2000 cure potency on a single click every 25 seconds. That's absolutely madness. But then you also have Equilibrium that upfront heals for 1200 cure potency and then additional 1000 heal over time effect for 2200 potency every minute from this ability. Or what about Thrill of Battle that bursts your max health up by 20%, and that's your max health, and heals for the same amount, so that's probably in and of itself something like 2000-ish cure potency, but then it also amplifies all healing done by 20%. That is a very powerful effect. Very powerful. Or what about the Storm's Path as literally just a part of your basic rotation, trickling healing into you? It's great. Or in terms of survivability, what about the lowest cooldown tank invulnerability in the game at 240 seconds? Yes, that is very nice. So playing a tank, and as a healer who has clearly had to heal tanks, warrior has an extremely solid place in my mind as being solid from all this. Reason 2 is that warrior's rotation just feels absolutely intensely great. The dopamine that flows from those big, bursty, massive direct critical hits is fantastic. Fell cleave spam is still a thing, and primal rend is just awesome. Lovingly, many people I know call it the monkey flip just because you just spin in the air, and yeah, it's just over the top and it's awesome. Some people may say fell cleave spam is boring. I, however, personally say that through the years, I've still yet to get sick of that outrageous, over-the-top, stupid ability. It just makes me feel so strong. It's iconic. It is a hallmark staple of Final Fantasy XIV and its memes. It is fantastic. The dopamine does not stop with the warrior with it. It feels so good. Reason number 3 is building on that last point, and I do 100% consider it a huge perk of the warrior, and warrior is actually my #1 choice to recommend to people with Tankxiety. I have almost called it the cure for Tankxiety. This is a job, which is a very real thing. Like, talking about Tankxiety, heck, before I even did these videos, I had a bit of it before going into P3S. P3S was like, okay, you, Cole, to myself, you deserve to talk about tanks if and only if you can take it through P3S confidently, because it just has so many tank mechanics and it is very stressful to pass the tethers and all that. Like, if you have never had Tankxiety before, just try going into a party finder group for P3S and have a co-tank steal your tether for an hour and get lectured by the rest of the group that clearly have never tanked. I think everyone should have that experience, because I just did the other day and it's very humbling, let me tell you that. But in my point of making that is that Tankxiety is very real. Anxiety around tanking, just a very, very real thing. And Warrior does honestly feature the clearest rotation for damage and damage buff management in all of the game. You need more damage buff? Great. Use Storm's Eye rather than Storm's Path at the end of your 1-2-3 primary rotation. You build up Beast Gauge for more Fell Cleaves. You pop Infuriate charges for more Beast Gauge. Don't let them overcap, but try to keep them with those inner release cooldown windows. Pop inner release every minute and throw as many Fell Cleaves into that, as well as a primal rend. Oh yeah, and use upheaval on cooldown. Use onslaught charges for damage unless you need the gap closer for some time else. Sorry, that might have sounded rough. This is not a guide video, but my point is, congratulations. Now you've learned the Warrior's rotation just from me literally spitballing it there. But as tongue-in-cheek as that might seem, that is like what I was kind of getting at before is a huge perk. Focus on mechanics, execute mechanics, focus on using cooldowns, live and sustain yourself through clearing the, getting through the fight and then clearing it ultimately and getting the loot. It's huge perk. Reason number 4 is that Warrior has the #1 best invulnerability in the game, at least in my opinion. Does it heal them? No. Does it protect their life from being further damaged when it's activated? No. But do you know what it does do? It has the lowest cooldown, and so it can be used to cheese out a ton more mechanics than, say, Paladin. An attentive healer can totally bring a warrior's health back up, let alone from point 1 the warrior themselves can bring their own HP up. But take P2S that has so many, supposedly called shared tank busters, the warrior can take the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th tank buster no problem. That, in fact, is standard meta. In fact, when I went to do it with other tanks, which I already did before doing this video, I found myself missing Holmgang a lot. A lot. It felt actually pretty horrible after doing it with Warrior, so yes, this is absolutely a huge perk. Reason 5 comes from me as a Scholar main who loves the synergy that I have with Warrior, and Warrior has Thrill of Battle that boosts healing done by 20%, but Scholar also has an ability called Deployment Tactics, where I get to put an Adlo barrier on one person, in this case it'll be the Warrior, and then I get to spread it using Deployment Tactics across the entire party. And Warrior's Thrill of Battle amplification stacks with other amplificators like Dissipation, Protraction, Bar's Nature's Manet amplification, and basically this means that your personal Thrill of Battle cooldown every 90 seconds pairs up with my Deployment Tactics every 90 seconds to make bears big enough to block out the sun, or in more realistic terms, cheese out a potential outright ignoring of mechanics. Yes, it is absolutely bonkers, which is kind of funny when you consider Scholar and Warrior in the lore. Not sure if it's intended by Square Enix for this kind of synergy, but it is there for sure in the actual gameplay too. Reason 6 is that Warrior is just a powerful utility tank, whether you are main or off tanking. Shake It Off is just fantastic AoE tank mitigation tool out the box, 15% barriers, which, yes, as you can imagine from the last point, is comical stacked up with Scholars, but Warrior can also toss out everything in the kitchen sink mitigation wise, and then this ability is going to take all of that and boost the barriers even further, at least with Bloodwetting, which is very easily accessible. This barrier is going to be really great. One thing that I do find funny, sometimes people say Warrior is a bad off tank, and I can't help but to find that a bit funny. You still get to use Bloodwetting and all of that outrageous healing, all of that mitigation, and all of that upfront 400 potency barrier on your co-tank. Yeah, Warrior has no concerns in that department. Reason 7 is that the Warrior is the get shit done, no frills, no gimmicks, no bullshit tank. Warrior brings the heat and does so without this weird mechanical this, weird that. There needs to be something said about cognitive load during raiding and progression, and Warrior alleviates a ton of that cognitive load. And this is really going to be the capstone of the video, is that Warrior frankly has no problem even slightly being my personal #1 recommendation to players just wanting to get into tanking, or for veterans that just want to get shit done. Worry about drifting cooldowns outside of no mercy buff windows? Worried about when is the ideal time to use this 90-second cooldown? That is a question, and people in parts groups are like, well, you technically save it for the 2-minute window. Yeah, you don't worry about that as Warrior. What about MP management and timing and shoving a billion off GCDs out? What? As Warrior? Those aren't concerns you're gonna ever have. And while those might appeal to many players, Warrior took its axe and cut the frills and the gimmicks off, and which, while even myself often enjoy the other tanks, it makes Warrior feel very much more focused in the moment. I found compared with other tanks that I was more able to be like, okay, XYZ is happening here on Warrior, rather than worried about drifting something out of my buff window by accident, or because I got distracted by, say, a P3S tether on another tank that the tank yarded off of my tether and didn't pop two cooldowns to mitigate, now I'm dead, or now my rotation's completely misaligned. Yeah, Warrior doesn't worry about any of that. But past that, Warrior just has so much more self-reliability and sustain that I feel like I'm the pilot when I'm playing Warrior. I feel like even if my healers are absolute trash, peace and love, I love you, but I can brute force my way through it, whether it be through my healing or my low cooldown home gang invuln. If I somehow die past all of my Warrior tools, I'll be frank with everyone, the group was totally beyond clearing. Yeah, that does it for my Warrior video. Like, geez, what else could I even hope to say at this point? Warrior's fantastic. Through and through, wholeheartedly, Warrior's fantastic. Like my last point said, I don't care if you're brand new to healing or a veteran, Warrior is my absolute must pick. It is my absolute top pick for getting shit done. Also, my ass is massive and great.